Hey guys, welcome back to the Joe Silverback Show. I'm your host, Joe Bunton. Today I'm going to respond to a lot of feedback that I've gotten over the years from those people who know my history and know my writings, and saying that, I really need to bring my own personal story into the Joe Silverback Show to give some context. So here goes. I'm 56 years old. I'm born in a native of San Diego. And my parents were the first of their generation to leave and move out west. So we were a pretty rootless family in terms of we didn't have our aunts and uncles and grandparents and cousins around us. Number one. Number two, born into a nuclear family with a father who was a diver. And because he was a diver, professional diver, he went to Kenya, he went to Japan, he went to Germany, he went to the Arabic Emirates. He was all over the world, being supervising drilling, underwater drilling. Fast forward, that meant that my father wasn't there for my mother and the 5 children that they had given, birth to, and it made it very difficult for them to stay together. On top of that, this was the 60s moving into the 70s when, divorce was really just beginning, in our country to explode. So, my father is an alpha male, very, very powerful, very much genius mindset, but and an only child, and that was the beginnings of my absorption of a male hero, a male role model. But because he wasn't around, and because I had this drive, this insatiable curiosity and drive to learn, I reached out and found older males to pull what was missing in my life, that at least subconsciously I was believing was missing from my life. And I'd say my dad and mom split when I was 9. I had a crew cut when my dad was there, very militaristic, disciplined guy, even though he wasn't in the military long after the Korean War, but he was a diver and he was really disciplined, and he was diving, side by side, civilian diving, often with the military. So I had a crew cut and up until the time he left, and then when he was gone, by as soon as I got out of elementary school, between 12 and 13, by 13 my hair was down to here. Anyway, at from 11 to 17, I had I'm going to delineate just primary male role models. So I had a role model who brought me. He was a biologist, a botanist. He went into nature a lot. We went kayaking, we went hiking, we were all over the back country, and he brought me with me. What brought me with him? His son died when he was 5. He was 13 years older than me, and so we bonded. And I wasn't quite a son for him, but I was somewhat maybe of a younger brother that he was mentoring. And he was a highly educated guy, gave me a lot of introduction to spiritual philosophies at the time, yoga, meditation, self-reflection, Yogananda, ashram, turned me on also to literature, Hermann Hesse, Rilke, Tolkien. So he was a quite an influential figure in my life. And then from 17 to 22, and I started university at 18, and got done at 24 with about a 2-year break in between there. But from 17 to 22, my twin brother and I and someone else lived with a mentor, guru, teacher, yoga, meditation, psychology, philosophy, mentor, and finished university, traveled, found my children's mother, met her, and came back. And coming back after a year away, met my last mentor, who I studied under for 10 years and learned a lot about some of the quite a bit of the principles that I share in the Silverback videos and in my own literature. So let's start with being 24 years old, graduated from university, traveled for almost a year, met my beauty, and then came back and was getting settled into who am I, what do I want, where am I going. And like a lot of young people, you know, in this culture, especially California culture, especially the rootless culture, especially without, you know, a father in the home, I would say that had I not had a strong male guiding force in my life, I don't think I would have had the successes that I've had. And that's really, really important to admit and to acknowledge. I mean, my father, for all his genius, he didn't really have, he had a father whose education level was about at the 6th grade and from an era where, you know, you really didn't pay attention to your child as a man. And so my father, you know, I can't really blame him for his exploits in life and his abandoning the family. I just don't think he got the education that I got around the Silverback principle. So that's really very important when we're talking about this program and when we're talking about helping others and when we're looking at how do young males model. Well, ideally, if they're like Tom Ventimiglia, my friend, they have an intact family. If they're like my wife's family right now, the mother and the father bonded, loved each other, and put their energies into their children and created stability. That was their primary focus in life, was providing stability for family life. And providing stability for family life and then pushing education, those are the earmarks and the foundations, as Thomas Sowell likes to say, for having a successful future. And I'm interested in the stability factor, and then how do we teach our boys to become silverbacks? How do we teach our girls to find silverbacks and become good partners with silverbacks? And it used to be that, and plenty of people still do that, it used to be that would be the primary role of church and religion. So for a lot of people today, church and religion is almost non-existent. Secondarily, for those who are religious, there's a softening and a feminizing of the churches and a liberalizing of the churches, especially around male-female roles that you can't get away from if you ask the question, how is it done in nature? So when going back to, my meeting at 24 with Martin, the Silverback, his constant barrage of putting into my head was the question that, hey, Joseph, what you need to answer all the time is, how is it done in nature, and how can I apply how it's done in nature in my life? That's number one. Number two was, hey, if you rambunctious, energetic, think you're the cool hotshot alpha male dude, want to have a woman admire you, respect you, look up to you, follow your lead, so to speak, in terms of family dynamics, what are you going to do to earn that? That's key. What are you going to do to earn it? So this concept that male leadership means male oppression is non-existent in my world, in my language, and it's non-existent in my acceptance of what a good leader and what a good man and what a good partner, husband, father does. He earns the role, and he takes on the liabilities and the responsibilities, and through taking on the liabilities and the responsibilities and carrying that, so that she can be free to give birth, care for the home, provide for the family, and put her attention on the nesting instincts that she has. It's such a crucial distinction in what we're trying to define here as the role of the silverback. So now let's go back to my story. I'm with the wise man. I'm with a silverback. I'm a young buck. I don't know what I'm doing. I understand the principles intellectually. I understand them inside my body, but I don't have the experience because I didn't grow up in the jungle with a bunch of silverbacks around me. So I have to train myself, and I have to imitate, and I have to practice, and I have to make mistakes. So let us begin with this acceptance that Joe Silverback is a silverback in the making because of desire and determination and awareness and consciousness, full of all kinds of mistakes, as you are and you will be, and it's okay. The idea isn't that the leader doesn't make mistakes. We're constantly poking and trying to knock down leaders in this country, in the world, in corporate America, in any aspect of our lives. And yet, it's hard for us to put ourselves in that position of leadership because oftentimes we don't want it. So the position of leadership is a powerfully responsible position, and it's full of challenges where everybody's gonna pounce on you if you make mistakes, and everyone's going to want to pound you into the ground, and you've got to rise up out of the dust heap and get back up there and keep scrapping until you climb back up onto the mountaintop again. So in my role with Martin, my mentor, he got me first and foremost to identify who I am, what I want, where I'm going, how I'm going to get there, my purpose in life. Once I identified that, once I said, I don't want to go to law school and follow my dad's idea of becoming a lawyer. That didn't feel internally right to me, even though looking back on it, I understand how and why my father thought that that was very, very good opportunity for me. It wasn't the right one for me. So when I chose that I wanted to be a writer, I was identifying my base, my power, my strength as the Silverback with life, with saying that this was going to be the center of my universe. Now, at the time, I had a relationship with my children's mother that I hadn't solidified. And Martin's second guiding punch to me was shit or get off the pot. You're 24, she's 24, she's a good woman. She deserves somebody who's ready for her. You need to decide if this is the right one for you. Decide that this is the right one for you and keep her, or decide she's not the right one and let her go. Okay, so that's part one of a little bit about the Joe Silverback story. Stay tuned for part two and part three and part four.